The engagement party was the moment everything changed. Hazel had known it would be difficult. She'd known there would be whispers, sideways glances, the careful avoidance of people who didn't know what to say. But she hadn't known how it would feel to stand in front of 120 people and tell the truth. Her father had called her to the stage. He'd made a speech about family, about contributions, about how grateful they were for Hazel's support over the years. He'd framed her as the dependent daughter, the one who'd needed them, the one who owed them everything. Hazel had walked to the microphone with her heart pounding. She'd thought about the basement, the years of payments, the mortgage that didn't exist. She'd thought about all the times she'd stayed silent to keep the peace. And then she'd spoken. "Thank you, Dad," she'd said, her voice steady. "For 8 years, I paid $2,400 a month to live in your basement. That's $230,400. I paid it because you told me you needed help with the mortgage. But the mortgage was paid off in 2014, a full year before I started paying rent." The room had gone silent. She'd watched her father's face freeze, her mother's color drain. She'd watched Meredith's carefully constructed composure crack. "I'm not saying this to ruin anyone's evening," Hazel had continued. "I'm saying it because my father just implied that I owe this family something, and I want everyone here to know the truth." The fallout was immediate. Bradley Ashford Sr., the patriarch of the family Meredith was marrying into, had stood up and asked pointed questions. The IRS had been notified. The wedding had been postponed indefinitely. Meredith's CPA license had been investigated. Hazel's parents had offered her $50,000 to stay quiet. She'd refused. And then the silence. 1 year later, Hazel sat at her kitchen table, a cup of tea cooling beside her. The apartment was small, but hers. The window looked out at a garden, not a drainage ditch. The rent was paid, and no one was lying to her about where that money went. She'd built a life. It wasn't flashy or impressive, it was hers. Grandpa Harold called every Sunday. His voice was weaker now, his hands shakier, but his spirit was still strong. He told her about the birdhouse he was building, the one he'd promised to the children's hospital. He told her stories about her grandmother, about the early days, about the kind of love that didn't need to be earned. "You're doing good, Hazel," he said one afternoon. "You're doing good." "I miss you, Grandpa." "I miss you too. But you're where you need to be. Don't forget that." Beatrice Tolliver's book club had become a sanctuary. Hazel attended every month, sitting in Beatrice's cozy living room with a dozen other women who loved stories as much as she did. They talked about novels, mostly. But sometimes they talked about life. "You're writing again," Beatrice said one evening. It wasn't a question. Hazel nodded. "I stopped for a while. I was too tired." "Writing is how we make sense of things," Beatrice said. "It's how we take the chaos and shape it into something we can hold. Don't stop, Hazel. The world needs your voice." Diane Carver had become a friend. They met for coffee once a month, sometimes more. Diane understood what it was like to carry the weight of expectations, to be the one who had to prove their worth every single day. "You're stronger than you know," Diane said. "Stronger than they ever gave you credit for." Hazel smiled. "I'm starting to believe that." "Good, because it's true." Michael Vance had stayed. He'd seen Hazel at her worst, and he'd stayed. They'd started dating slowly, carefully, like two people who'd been hurt before and didn't want to rush into another wound. Michael understood her need for space. He understood that trust wasn't something she gave easily. One evening, he took her hand across the dinner table. "I love you," he said simply. "Not because you're perfect, because you're real, because you're brave, because you're still here, after everything." Hazel looked into his eyes and saw something she'd been afraid to name. "I love you too," she said softly. "I think I've loved you for a long time. I just didn't know if I deserved to." "You do," he said. "You always have." Lauren Ashford had become a sister of sorts. They'd bonded over their shared experiences, the golden siblings, the invisible daughters, the long road to self-worth. "Do you ever talk to your brother?" Hazel asked one evening. Lauren shook her head. "He doesn't understand. He never did. He thinks I'm the one who broke things, that I was too difficult, too demanding. He doesn't see that I was just asking to be seen. I know that feeling. But that's the thing, Lauren said. We don't need them to see us anymore. We see ourselves. And that's enough. The letter came on a Tuesday. Hazel recognized the handwriting, the careful loops and slashes, the same hand that had signed birthday cards that always felt hollow. It was from Meredith. Tessa, I'm not angry anymore. I think I understand now. I just wish things had been different. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm just saying that I'm sorry. Your sister, Meredith. Hazel read the letter 3 times. She thought about the years of silence, the complicity, the decisions that had led to this moment. She thought about forgiveness and whether it was something she could offer. She didn't reply. Not because she was cruel, not because she was holding a grudge, but because she didn't know what to say yet. Maybe someday, maybe not. And that was okay. Mrs. Dot Brennan still lived next door to Hazel's parents. She'd been the one to report the fraud to the IRS, the one who'd seen the truth and refused to stay silent. Every Sunday, Hazel visited her. The lemon cake was always warm, the tea always fresh. They sat in Mrs. Dott's kitchen, surrounded by the smell of sugar and the hum of old memories. They don't talk about you anymore, Mrs. Dot said one afternoon. I think they're too ashamed. Hazel nodded slowly. I don't know if I'm glad about that or sad. Both, Mrs. Dot said. Both is okay. Thank you, Hazel said, for everything, for seeing what they were doing and refusing to look away. Mrs. Dot reached across the table and took her hand. I've known you since you were a little girl, Hazel. I've watched you grow, watched you struggle, watched you try so hard to earn love that should have been given freely. You deserve better than what they gave you. And I'll say that as many times as you need to hear it. Eleanor Granger sent an email with an invitation. Dear Hazel, I hope this finds you well. We're hosting a reading series at the college this spring, and I'd love for you to be one of the featured writers. Your story is one that needs to be heard, not just by your students, but by everyone. Please consider it. With warm regards, Eleanor. Hazel read the email and smiled. She'd been afraid for so long, afraid to speak, afraid to tell her story, afraid of what people would think. But now she understood something important. The story wasn't about shame, it was about survival, it was about truth. It was about finding the courage to say, this is who I am, and that is enough. She replied yes. The reading was held in the college auditorium. 150 people came, students, faculty, community members. Hazel stood at the podium, her hands steady, her voice clear. She read about the basement. She read about the payments, the lies, the moment she discovered the truth. She read about the engagement party and the fall of everything her parents had built. She read about the long road to healing. And when she was done, the audience rose to their feet. Not because she'd told a story of revenge, because she'd told a story of hope. After the reading, a woman approached her. She was older, perhaps 60, with kind eyes and a gentle smile. Your story, the woman said, reminded me of my own daughter. She went through something similar. It took her years to find her voice. Hazel nodded. How is she now? She's fine, the woman said. She's strong. She's happy. She's everything I always knew she could be. She paused. I used to be the one who couldn't see her. I'm grateful I learned before it was too late. Hazel looked at the woman and saw something she hadn't expected. Remorse, growth, a willingness to change. I'm glad you did, she said softly. So am I. Hazel's life continued. She kept writing, kept teaching, kept building a life that was entirely her own. She saw Grandpa Harold every Sunday, drank tea with Mrs. Dot, went to book club with Beatrice, had coffee with Diane, and spent evenings with Michael, learning what it meant to be loved without conditions. The anger faded. It didn't disappear entirely. It might never fully disappear, but it softened into something she could carry without it weighing her down. She learned that forgiveness wasn't about forgetting. It was about letting go of the hope that the past could be different. It was about accepting what had happened and choosing to move forward anyway. She learned that family wasn't defined by blood. It was defined by the people who saw you, really saw you, and loved you anyway. She learned that boundaries weren't selfish, they were survival. They were the walls you built to keep yourself safe and the windows you opened to let in the light. One Sunday, Hazel sat in her apartment, looking out the window. The maple trees outside were turning gold. Autumn was coming, and with it, the promise of change. She thought about the basement. She thought about all the years she'd spent underground, paying rent for a space that was never really hers. She thought about the money, the thousands of dollars that had disappeared into her parents' accounts. And she felt nothing, not anger, not sadness, just a quiet acceptance. She'd stopped waiting for her parents to be the people she'd needed them to be, stopped waiting for Meredith to apologize, stopped waiting for some grand reconciliation that was never going to come. And in that stopping, she'd found something unexpected peace. Michael called. I'm on my way over. I brought dinner. Hazel smiled. I'll be here. She hung up and looked around the apartment. It was small, modest, entirely hers. The couch was comfortable. The pictures on the walls made her smile. The window looked out at a garden, and the light streamed in, warm and golden. No one charged her rent. No one tracked her payments. No one used her existence as leverage. She was just Hazel, and that was more than enough. She wrote a final piece for the community newspaper. It wasn't about her parents or the money or the years of silence. It was about something simpler, about learning to see yourself clearly, about the courage it takes to walk away, about the peace that comes when you finally stop trying to earn love that should have been given freely. She titled it, The View from the Window. I used to live in a basement, she wrote. The window looked at a drainage ditch. I thought that was all I deserved. But I was wrong. I deserved light. I deserved space. I deserved to be seen. And so do you. If you're in a basement, literal or figurative, I hope you find the courage to climb out. I hope you find your voice. I hope you remember that you are not the sum of what people have told you. You are the sum of what you choose to become. Be brave. Be honest. Be kind to yourself. And when you finally step into the light, remember this: you belonged there all along. The phone rang. Hazel answered without looking at the screen. Hazel? It was her mother. Diane's voice was hesitant, fragile, nothing like the woman who'd controlled every room she'd ever entered. I've been thinking about you, Diane said. I know I don't have any right to call. I know we hurt you, but I wanted to say that I'm sorry. Not because I want something, not because I expect you to forgive me. I'm sorry. Hazel was quiet for a long moment. Thank you, she said finally. I've been waiting to hear that for a long time. She hung up and stared at the phone in her hand. It wasn't a reconciliation, it wasn't even a conversation, but it was something, a small crack in the wall she'd built to protect herself. Maybe someday she'd be ready to open the door wider, maybe not. But for now, she was okay with that. She put on her coat and walked to Mrs. Dott's house. The lemon cake was warm, the tea was fresh, the company was kind. This is what family looks like, Hazel said, taking a bite of cake. This right here, Mrs. Dott smiled. It sure is, honey. It sure is. Hazel looked out the window. The maple trees were shedding their leaves, golden and red and beautiful. The world was changing, and she was changing with it. She was no longer the daughter who lived in the basement. She was no longer the silent one, the forgotten one, the one who paid for love with every penny she had. She was just Hazel, and that was more than enough.